Good day, playmates. Now let us proceed to the masters of defense and counter-attack in chess. Who is this? This is Emanuel Lasker, and let's start to e4, e5, knight f3, and then knight c6 as our response, and also support to the e5 pawn. And then the continuation is bishop b5, and then knight f6 as our response. So this make a pin at the king, knight f6, and then castling king side by the white pieces, and then d6 to support the e5 pawn to make strong the center, and then d4 d4 attacking the a5 pawn, and as our response is bishop d7 to have a cover or protection of the king side, and then knight c3 as white, see knight c3, and then bishop e7 bishop e7, and then the seventh move is rook e1. Rook e1. The Steinitz defense was very popular during the first half of the 20th century. White has moved more space, but not much more than that. Okay, so a second continuation, e takes d4, black continues, and then knight takes d4 as a response of the white, and then castling king side, and then knight takes c6. There. By the way, doubling a pawn is tempting, because if the bishop takes c6 and the b pawn takes c6, queen f3 is of similar strength. So did you see that? Doubling the pawn. So the pawn is double, and then the b file is open. So as what I've said, the queen f3 is of similar strength there to attack the king side defense of the black king. So whereas bishop f1 is also considered as a different idea, avoiding exchanges. This advisable when one has more space, leaving the opponent with a mobility problem. There. So second continuation, bishop takes c6, and then bishop takes c6, and then pawn at b takes the bishop in c6, and then knight to e2. Now the knight is heading for f5 and h5. Did you see the f5 and h5 to attack in the king side? This combined with b3 and bishop b2 pertaining the attack on the king side defense, right? So threatens to create strong pressure against the black king side. That is the purpose of the knight into e2, right? Combining with b3 and bishop b2. Okay, so continuation, queen d7. So and then knight to g3, and then rook if e8. Well, Rita recommended that rook fd8 in order to play the rook ab8, keeping the a8 square for the retreat of the f6 knight. So it is not advisable to put your king or your rook at the fd8, because if the knight will retreat, then there is a space in e8, right? So for example, this one, the knight will have a space in rook e8. Okay, and then b3, and there b3, rook a d8, then bishop b2, knight g4. There. Given that Lasker had a tremendous tactical ability as well others virtues, we don't know whether this was a tactical mistake or a practical resource to complicate the game using nothing less than his own king as a bait. Alright. So continuation is bishop takes g7, a sacrifice. Let us see this one at bishop takes g7. What a good move by the white pieces to Lasker. And then as a response, the king do not take the bishop, but the knight takes f2 at the king side. Also sacrifice. Exchange for the pawn. And then Lasker decided to take anyway, it cannot be, of course, because there is a knight g7. That is a bad move. It's not possible due to knight f5 check. Knight f5 check. So that is a bad move if you take again the bishop at g7 automatically. So king takes f2. Objectively, this is a perfectly good while gets an extra pawn and an almost decisive advantage. So king takes g7 this time. King f5 check. I mean knight f5 check to the king, and then king h8, right? King h8 backward, and then queen d4 check. f6 as a cover, so there is a threat. You need to have to move your pawn at f6 as a cover, and then queen takes a7. Well, queen takes a7. White has won a pawn and is much better. However, the greatest threat to the black king's life, namely the dark square bishop, has disappeared. White still has to use his good technique in order to win. So there is an advantage, undecisive advantage, in taking the a7 pawn by the queen. So as continuation, bishop f8 by black. Bishop f8. So where's the bishop? Here, the bishop f8. There, bishop f8. And then queen to d4. Go back to d4 again to have a pin at the center or the f6 pawn, and then rook e5 cover the threat or the pin. Rook a d1 is the white. Rook a d1. Well, white had wasted time. The prospects of victory through a direct attack, which he must have cherished after bishop takes g7, that is a good move in a way, have vanished. Now he must adapt to the new situation. Okay, rook d e8, and then queen c3, queen f7. Good move, because there is a threat at the king side. Okay, knight to king to g3, I mean knight to g3, and then bishop h6. There, at last, the bishop can breathe now, because there is a lot of barrier earlier at the bishop takes. So queen f3 to support the queen side, d5, e takes d5, and then bishop e3 check. There is an attack, and then king f1 goes backward, e takes d5. There, then rook d3. This is a clear mistake that allows black to get the upper hand. All his pieces will become perfectly coordinated. and then queen to e6. Let's continue to queen to e6. There, rook e2. There, rook e2. f5. Good move. f5. Good move. The black pawns on f5 and d5 will be used to fortify the strong c3 bishop and also to drive away the poor g3 knight, which is now being turned into piece without good prospect. So that is a very strong move at f5 and d5 to support the bishop in I mean fe3, right? So there, so the knight, rook d1, and then f4, the knight to h1, and then d4, and again the knight to f2, and then queen a6. Good move, actually a6, then not h6 again. This is queen a6. Good move, threatening to win the bishop takes f2. If bishop takes f2, then there is a capture at h2, right? So the attack, the movement of the white here is very difficult. So continuation is knight d3, and now white has very little room. But how is black to penetrate his position? Okay, rook g5. Good move, answering by preparing the queen h6, right? So the queen h6, there is an attack, the pawn and queen, and then rook a1, supporting the a file pawn, attacking by the queen h6, right? So the queen is a6 before, and then the movement is the queen to h6 in a way. As what I've told you before, the queen is at e6 and then goes to the queen h6, attacking the h6, the h2 pawn. So knight e1, support the king side, and then queen takes h2, and then knight to d1, check. Anyway, I mean king to d1. So there, king to d1, and then queen g1 check. There, queen g1 check. Cover the knight to e1, and then the rook ge5. Good move. Rook ge5. Good move. Attacking at the kingside defense. And then queen c6. There. Attacking the c8 pawn. And then the rook e6. Bad move anyway. Rook 5 e6, bad move because Lasker wants to exchange the pawn. Anyway, that will now compensation. Queen takes c7 and rook 8 e7, queen d8 check. Well, this and the next move allow deadly tactic. If the queen c8 check, good move, keeps an eye on the e6 rook. Anyway, well, the king to g7, and then a4, bad move, and then f3. There is an attack on the promotion of the pawn. Well, g takes f3, bishop g5, and the white pieces surrender because, or resigned, because the rook at a6 is met by rook e6 and queen e3. Resign. Okay, playmates, Lasker's careless handling of the opening pawn left him in a very precarious situation. In order to extricate himself, he did not hesitate to sharpen the game to the maximum. Okay, playmates, do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Anyway, playmates, we have been a lot of game reviews and let's watch out. And for now, this is our review. Bye, playmates.